Hey, everybody, we are back. Episode 246 of the 6-5 podcast. It's Friday. Pat, this is the best time of the week. It's always the moment of rejuvenation, enthusiasm, excitement, passion, and conversation. How you doing, buddy?
And I'm doing great. You know, it's kind of weird. Some weeks I'm just deluged with advisory calls and everybody's like, I need time. And this week I had a bunch scheduled. Probably half of them were canceled for various reasons. And, some pretty good lifts. I hit a personal best on bench press. That's a plus. I did have some really good advisory calls and, just getting ready for Davos in Switzerland. I fly out on Saturday.
Do you I know those meetings got canceled, by the way. It was, you posted, I can't believe you told everybody about your new G700. And then you posted about it. And then I think some of the customers were like, clearly, this guy's making too much money. And we're not gonna do anymore.
That's right. The post is basically, I'm going to my G700. I'm going to eat a lot of ribeye. And then I'm going to finger wag everybody who isn't at WEF and tell them to reduce their carbon footprint, stop eating meat because it creates too much methane gas, and eat some bugs while I'm there. I'm looking. I'm looking forward. I am now officially a globalist. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, you live in your little orbit of pretending that you weren't always a globalist and flying around. You lost me at ribeye though. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
man.
by the way,
it would be like gently massaged Wagyu, probably dry aged, grass fed, grass finished, of course.
Yes.
You probably don't. You're probably one of those guys that actually goes out like with the butcher and looks at the cow. You like kind of massage it and you're like, yeah, this is the one.
By the way, the funny part was, I got congratulations on the jet. By the way, G700 is fully stocked as $100 million, folks. And there were some people who responded to it with laughing emoji and simply like, man, that's great. Congratulations, folks. $100 million. Think about this. Not going to happen. And
hey, don't underestimate what's possible. I'm
just saying right now, buddy.
It's the world's best technology podcast.
No, it is. It is. This thing could go crazy. But
well, it's good. And I don't think we can fully start to roll our plans out to everybody, but like after 246 episodes, the 6-5 may be getting a bit of a facelift in the near future. I think
yes,
we're going to disrupt ourselves, and that's not because our show is stale. We know it's amazing and awesome, and every week you want to know about the 6 big topics. But, as we've evolved our banter, as you've gone from fat to skinny and now muscly, you're like Jeff Bezos, man. I saw Bezos in the Polo launching the Blue Origin. I'm like, damn, that dude's ripped.
I know. Guys getting jacked.
I got down and started doing push-ups. When I looked at that picture, I'm like, crap. It's like if he can do it, I can do it. But I'm even going to update my logo on this stupid frame that this thing is in because I hate that logo and what it represents and the idiots that helped create it and, all that goodness. But hey, yeah, we got a great show, Pat. I mean, we got a lot to cover today. We got some macro, some micro, some topics, some M&A, we've got some big events. We are going to be in Davos, 6-5 making its first presentation. Futurum's launching its biggest CEO AI research study of its kind. The band is getting together. We're going to have some great conversations out there. And Pat, there's a lot more, just a whole lot more going on in the world in general. We got the inauguration of the president, number 47, also number 45. Sir. That's going to be a big moment. It seems that there's going to be no politicians showing up there, but there's going to be a whole lot of CEOs. No Democrats are going to show up, but a lot of CEOs are planning to come. Very interesting times we live in. All the CEOs have now been to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. And we're going to get a Bitcoin reserve. That's pretty cool. So for those of us that bought crypto, it seems that Donald Trump's administration is going to drive parabolicness to our portfolios. And but we also, there's some big news. Microsoft made big news this week. There's some new AI regulation Biden leaves the White House with a love note. Love that topic. Who came up with that crap? UK.
Our producers are amazing. I want to thank the back office for all the hard work they do.
Yeah, they are really good at their job. I have to
Totally.
say, next level, and
Yeah.
it's really driving this podcast into the future. Is the UK is pushing antitrust regulation? There's a shocker. One of my favorite topics: big companies laying off unproductive people. I know, seems insensitive. I've got an opinion on that. There was a little M&A this week in the storage space. I'm going to let you sort of take that one, but we'll talk about it a little bit more. And then, of course, the big tech earnings wave is led by TSMC coming out first. TSMC, always the great indicator of what's to come, especially at the sort of tier 0-1 of chips and infrastructure. So a lot to cover today, Pat. By the way, for everybody out there, this show is for information, entertainment purposes only. And while we will be talking about public companies, please don't take anything we say as investment advice. Pat, so much to cover, so much. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't. By the way, that QUBT company, I just got to say this right now, the one that was a Qubit, actually the fraud charges have started to come out today. I saw them hit. You just don't go from making energy drinks to quantum computers in short order. It doesn't happen. I'm not saying they're real. I mean, Hindenburg Research actually shut down this week after
I know.
They were so good. They were like 90%. I was looking down the list of all their short reports, and like half of them were down 99.9%, meaning they absolutely nailed it. I think about 10 of them they maybe got wrong, but what a batting average. That's a really hard thing. And the guy actually said, Pat, he goes, it was like killing him. Like, it's like being the guy at the craps table that plays the don't pass line. It's like, even though statistically, probabilistically, it's maybe the second best bet on the table besides the actual pass line. So if you're kind of wanting to play that up the odds, but you're just the asshole. If you actually are the guy. And so being short and being publicly sort of that sort of short research, terrible place to be, especially with the bullishness that exists in our market. People want the market to go up. Pat, let's dive in though. Satya Nadella. I mean, look, it's an agent war now. We're in agent wars. Everybody's talking. I think there's going to be a huge topic this week at Davos. Pat, what did Microsoft announce this week?
Yeah, so Microsoft brought out another flavor of Copilot. This time it's Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. I know I saw a lot of snarkasm out there saying, "Oh, it's another week, another Microsoft Copilot." No, I feel you. And first of all, when I look at the breadth, first of all, Microsoft has a consumer entity it needs to take care of, and it has a commercial, enterprise, medium business, small business, and then you have vertical forms, right? You've got, for instance, Copilot for sales and things like that. So I get the snarkasm, and the way that I like to measure things is it delivering unique value? And if I look back and we do a lot of research on this, what are the key inhibitors to enterprise AI adoption? And they shift from quarter to quarter, but not as much as you might think, right? You've got the data management piece. You have the what's the ROI? You have skill sets. You have, and one of them is cost. Okay, so when you look at how do you get somebody excited to pay for $30 per month per seat? If you have half a million employees, it might look, oh my gosh, this is a ton of money. Now, let's say that's saving you $20 million a year. That cost becomes negligible, right? It's like take my money type of stuff. And I think, as humans, right, we've seen this. I would pay a lot more for Perplexity than it charges. So you have to get the organization to try it out. You need trial to demonstrate the return on investment. And what this new Microsoft 365 Copilot chat does, it adds this pay-as-you-go mentality not per token, right? Let's say if you were in the data center, but per message, okay? 1 penny per message. And I think Microsoft did a pretty good job showing, and you can hit up the screenshots on X that I get laid out here, how it compares to the full up Copilot versus Copilot chat. What would I'll call it, full rotation around the planet if you were actually trying to do something for an entire day. So for instance, a sales performance agent, right? The estimated cost per day, doing 4 generative answers, 4 tenant graph grounding for messages. You're looking at, 12,800 messages. Okay. And that is really cheap when you're looking at a penny. Plus you could buy these packs, which is, I'll call it a tweener versus pay as you go message packs going versus a full up Microsoft 365 Copilot license. So listen, I get the criticism, but I think what they're doing is the right thing, and we'll see if it generates usage. The other thing, when I step back, Daniel, I was wondering, does this indicate that Microsoft's invested the right amount of capital expense to be able to unleash this to the world, and they actually have capacity now to do this? I think we'll figure this out as we get into the months and the quarters, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, we know the agentic movement is really substantial. Our team has done a pretty big TCO breakdown on it. We've got it pegged at about $4 trillion of labor that we believe can be augmented or completely displaced by agents in 2025. That's how big. And we just kind of looked across the labor pool, and we looked at how much of the labor we estimate could be done currently by agents, and then we basically took a percentage and a fraction of that. So that's kind of the opportunity that's at stake. And of course, 4 trillion of direct labor doesn't mean 4 trillion in spend on software. The idea would be that labor could be done at some fraction of the cost of software. And then there's always what I call the prune to grow, meaning you find those efficiencies, reinvest in productivity gains. But agents are going to totally change the calculus by which businesses are run. Microsoft has a massive opportunity and a real challenge in front of it. I mean, the massive opportunity for Microsoft is it literally has all the users, the install user base. I look at the Microsoft opportunity for agents as a lot like the Apple opportunity for on-device AI. When you have all the users already there, you build the right product and you're going to get people to use it. The business model's been in question. Look, I mean, the external sort of rumor mill on the street is that, there's some concerns about the investment where people have gone in on Copilot, they're paying the money for it, they're not sure they're getting the value. That's been the anecdotal. You read it across the internet. And I've actually talked to some CIOs, and a lot of them are saying like, yeah, we're using it, but we're not sure. So this is also really interesting, Pat, because it's like a new way to think about how to charge rather than that sort of bigger per seat fee. Now, I have to say, like the $20 a head or $50 a head or any of those sort of numbers, if this stuff works well and is really deriving value, it's nothing.
100%, Daniel. I mean, imagine if the Word document to PowerPoint actually worked well. I've tried it out a bunch of times. Doesn't work great, but I got to tell you, I am signed up for the Chat GPT Pro. Right, when I want a long, reasoned answer, I am paying it, and I'm probably gonna keep paying it until something better comes along. I mean, how much would you pay for Perplexity?
I mean, at this point, I'm not, but
funny, you're not using Perplexity Pro Search? I
am using it. I'm not using the paid version.
You can't use Pro without paid.
No, I'm not using the Pro version, the paid version.
Okay.
I'm just using the free version. I have a few of them. I have Gemini Pro. I'm using that one right now. I had ChatGPT. I canceled that one. We're kind of Google, in our workspace is how is our kind of corporate platform. So I've rolled up a lot of Google features and functionalities.
Pay for all of them.
The newest, well, that's just you though. That's like, you and I are just different that way. You're sort of the tear everything down, play with it, geek out on it, share benchmarks. I let Signal 65 do that kind of work. That's my take. Let the geeks do the geek stuff. I mean, Pat, we are the only lab out there that has I think a 72 node H200 system up and running and a 64 node MI system. Just saying out there are no other labs out there that have the type of cool ass tech stuff that we do. So anyone out there that wants to know more about that, you got to check out our lab people. Sorry, no promotion on this show, Pat. Stop it. Stop promoting, please. This is a organic show that's supposed to be here to entertain people. Anyways, the agent space is going to grow rapidly, Pat. We're going to talk a lot more about this. Be very interesting to sort of see adoption. I mean, it's all the opportunity comes in the outcomes. If people are getting value in the outcomes, this type of model, just like you mentioned with using Pro, you're willing to pay for it because there's a ton of value in it for you. People need to get the value. They need to see the agents work. Right now, it feels like a little bit of architecture across the board, not just them, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, all the companies talking agents. But I think very quickly we're going to see this sort of as the data and the application and the agentic workflows become well understood and accurate and trustworthy, that business is going to just explode. I'm super bullish about it for this year. All right, man, we got to get to the next topic. We can hit this. We can run with this all day long, but let's talk about AI regulation, Pat. So what? 8 days, you and I last Sunday night, 8 days before we're getting kind of a brief overview on what's going on. The Biden administration decides to push forward on some rules to basically further limit the exporting of AI chips. Now, again, this is rules on top of existing rules, and the rules on top of the existing rules that were designed for really calling what's now not much more advanced than what's going into some advanced GPUs for gaming are now being kind of put on these restricted lists. And let me be upfront about this. We have a real sort of difficult needle to thread because China is getting access to our most advanced semis. They always have, they always will. And there's a lot of sort of muckety muck about how does that continue to happen? You get all these export controls and, it's shipping through Singapore. Well, how does that happen? Like TSMC is shipping things to China. They don't even know. People are tearing apart boards and finding hardware inside of equipment that's not supposed to be able to get there. So that's kind of at the core of why this goat rodeo that is import and export controls is such a big thing with AI chips. To be clear, AI chips are going to be the foundation in which the world's economic growth and basically security is going to be built on. The winner of AI will be the winner of the economy. The winner of AI will be the winner of national defense. So, but now the thing is, unlike these really restrictive rules about China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and other, adversarial nations, we've expanded that with these new rules that basically make it very difficult for companies in Switzerland, companies in Iceland, companies in places that we would typically consider to be neutral or friendly. You can't be more neutral than Switzerland, can you, Pat? And basically making it very difficult for them to purchase and to implement next generation AI technologies. I mean, NVIDIA, of course, one of the biggest and most outspoken on this particular one. It's 120 days from now, supposed to go into effect. Pat, I think we could talk a lot about what's in this rule. I want to use my little bit of time that I have left before passing it to you to just say, I genuinely believe this was nothing but day, 11th hour grandstanding by the Biden administration. Not even sure President Joe Biden's lucid enough to know what he signed into law at this point. I think that the idea is not on his administration's watch. So meaning that if China does over the next 4 years move quicker, we're seeing what they're able to do in frontier models. We've seen at least rumors. Again, nothing is ever confirmed as to how things work there, but the stories that have come out about their most advanced frontier models being trained on older chips, being competitive with our newest frontier models, probably worried some people. But I think Biden does not want the world to ultimately walk away thinking that his presidency and his policies enabled China, North Korea, or other adversarial countries in the world to gain or become on parity with us in any way around AI. In the process, though, he's putting business at risk. He's putting our largest enterprises at risk. There's a better way to approach this. It's something we could probably talk about at another time. I think Trump will reverse this or most of this because it's just not, I feel like it's a blunt instrument being deployed to solve a problem that requires a scalpel. And we can spend more time, Pat, maybe sometime on how we could actually address the need for these things. But I'll pass that back to you.
Yeah. So first of all, hat tip to our amazing producers. I don't know if any of you read history, but ex-presidents leaving the new incoming president an envelope goes back to 1993 with George Bush and Clinton. And then we saw it in 2001, Bill Clinton to George W., and then George W. to Barack, and then Barack to Donald Trump. And then even Trump left a note in 2021 to Biden. So, this is a love note that Biden is leaving Trump. And with that said, thank you, production team.
Nice job, production team. Production team's getting a bonus. They're going to get a quarter zip 6'5" media shirt.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Here are the facts. The facts are there are a certain set of regulations that is keeping China, Russia, North Korea, and others from gaining access to technology that they could use to hurt the United States and others. And here, the second fact is that China is getting around it. And there are countries and people who are helping it. I mean, years ago, when this first BIS thing came out, I said, hey, look at the size of an A series, right? Look at the size of a graphics card, right? You can smuggle those in your luggage if you wanted to. I mean, my gosh, look at how arms get over to the Middle East. I mean, it's just like, this is really, really hard. So I think the intentions are good here. And I personally agree that we need to do more to get, this is essentially the modern day nuclear weapons capability and centrifuges. But I just have to question, again, I think you had a great analogy, a scalpel versus blunt instrument here. I mean, listen, we can't even, the BIS couldn't even get the link at the bottom of their website to work. Okay. And this is going to be the traffic cop to authorize all of this. Okay. That is an absolute freaking disaster. Okay. And like, I don't know who puts this stuff together because you might get ahead of this and say, we are staffing up. We're going to give a 48-hour turnaround because, Daniel, we're in this age where trust in institutions is an all-time low, right? Whether it's the press, whether it's the government, and this needed to come out. So I also think the industry should work together to make this, to come up with some suggestions on the best way to do this. In our conversation with NVIDIA, they had some interesting suggestions, right? But I think this is getting very serious now. Maybe the other way to look at it, and Dan, I know we're looking at remapping our show. Maybe we have a segment where we play both sides of something. But
I kind of did that. I think I kind of was trying to explain.
Yeah.
I tried.
We've other sided this because this thing is nuanced. But yeah, let's have the industry.
You don't want to be the president that basically allowed. It's like allowing nuclear technology in the past era. I mean, effectively, there is kind of the legacy here. Like I was the president that enabled North Korea and China to become AI global leaders because we basically gave our best IP away. And we also know what China does when it gets
pure
access.
Politics. Yeah.
When China gets access to our IP, they build their own and they tend to do a pretty good job of it. So, they may not be able to create, but they're certainly able to copy very effectively, and have done so. What was the old joke I heard? How many, when you talk to a certain CEO about VMware, he said something along the lines of, how many copies of VMware they have in China?
Yeah.
How many licenses?
Like one.
One.
Yeah. No, I know. That's fun. Hey, the final comment I want to make is in the other sideism here is, like we saw with Huawei and where, Defense Department saying, hey, they've got back doors. We need to get Huawei out of all Western technology, including their phones and their infrastructure. People are asking, okay, show me the evidence. Like, does Portugal want it aired out, right? That they were the country that let all this stuff go through. And by the way, there are countries that are setting up data centers that are way beyond the capacity of the EU, of any customer coming in. And you have a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East as well. Who's going to soak up all of those? So anyways, this is a nuanced discussion. It's not black and white. What is black and white is that China is skirting regulations and people are helping them. And the third is that anything tied to the government has a level of bureaucracy and time that will slow down commerce. This will slow down commerce based on everything I understand about it, and prove me wrong, everybody out there, if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat, we've got to keep moving. We're doing the 620 today. Good on us. So let's stay with regulation, nonsense, craziness. What's going on in the UK, Pat? Because they're not EU anymore, but I mean, they kind of are sometimes.
Yeah, so I got up, I think Tuesday morning, something like that. I'm supposed to be talking chips on Yahoo Finance on their opening show. And about 5 minutes beforehand, it's like, hey, can you talk about the Google Antitrust situation? Always fun. But what the easy part, Dan, is we cover antitrust so much that it's like a copy and paste. So essentially, when the UK left the EU, they had to, set up a lot of their own bureaucracy, and one of them is around antitrust. And as we've seen through, Adobe getting shot down with the major acquisition they were making, the UK is trying to flex its muscle and be the top innovator in antitrust regulation. And this time it's with Google. And the investigation is very similar to other investigations that we've seen around the world, which is the following: that Google uses its monopoly power in search to unfairly limit competition from either competitors to its own applications, which could be advertising in, let's say, restaurants. That could be Google Maps versus, going to an open table or the French version of the open table. And this is very similar in line with the EU's DMA, which says there are gatekeepers. Okay, the UK has a different flavor of it, but it's essentially the DMA. Google has what's called AdWords. I think it's called Google Ads now. Came with an acquisition, Daniel, I think they made in like 2000. Okay, back when I was at Alta Vista, which essentially is the mechanism to bid on advertising. And Google has their own properties. So this will be the debate. It's funny, when I got on, my big quote out of Yahoo Finance was, just ignore this thing, right? I think we've been trained in markets that when's the last time we saw a big ruling come down from any antitrust other than a fine that actually made a difference? So I'm kind of other siding this with, I guess what the EU forced Apple to do on certain things, kicking and screaming. I mean, I don't think that has any material change to their short-term or mid-term business. So yeah, the market yawned and I yawned, and that was the pull quote that Yahoo Finance pulled out.
Yeah, so I love this. Pat, I don't know if you've watched the big catch of the rocket again yesterday, second time with the boosters and Elon, and there's this great visual of the EU. And I know again, UK is not EU, but a lot of its kind of lagging policies are still of its time as part of the EU and the EC. And it shows a picture of Musk's, SpaceX catching the rocket, and then the next one is a guy with a water bottle. And the little cap, and the cap is disconnected. You know how they are now on their water bottles, when you pull them off, you can't actually remove the cap. They kind of like hang, they dangle. And, that's the sort of span of innovation that goes on there. If you actually listen to the Rogan pod with Mark Zuckerberg, Mark actually came out pretty clean for the first time. Again, new Zuck. I don't know who this guy is. This is Red Pill Zuck, I think. It's the Red Pill Zuck.
Yeah, which Zuck?
New Zuck comes out and he's kind of talking about how basically they just stifle innovation and they just fine people. So basically, just so you know, I can get done more quickly with this topic, not because it's not a good one, but because you covered the technical part of it pretty well, is that the US innovates and the EU fines. And that's they basically penalize because they haven't figured out how to enable it. And by the way, maybe they do know how to do it, but they just don't want to do it. And so alternatively, no companies are really being built there of substance. And then meanwhile, when US companies come there, bring their innovation there, they sort of create these tolls. And the tolls are in a version of fines and regulation. And US companies pay it, and it raises money for the EC and the EC, but in this case, in the UK. I mean, look, there's some real fundamental things with Google that need to be looked at. Just like the real fundamental things with Apple that need to be looked at. These companies have built these really, really deeply interconnected moats.
Concentration is not good for innovation. It's just not.
And the one thing I'll leave this at is that effectively antitrust law needs to be redone. And I've said this, and I'll say it, and I'll keep saying it, is that the fact is it was originally intended for two things, to increase competition and remove consumer harm. And the fact is in the process of reducing competition, consumers aren't always harmed. Like the consumer experience across the Apple ecosystem or the Google ecosystem or the Microsoft ecosystem is generally a better experience. So you have these completely unified connectors between different parts of the ecosystem, connecting you between devices and locations and experiences, and it's good. And the thing is by actually breaking that up to give people the opportunity to compete in parts, opens all kinds of security vulnerabilities. It opens up more friction in the experiences to get between an app and a device and the security and the payment. So the antitrust rules just suck. They suck because they don't work. If you want people to have great experiences, you actually somewhat are an enabler of anti-competitive situations, because these companies build these moats, and the moats are great experiences. People want that. So nobody cares. It's like, so just keep fighting EU. That'll get you where you want to go eventually. You can raise taxes to 120%. That's the plan. You can tax everybody and then tax them again when they spend the money they don't have. All right, buddy, we got to keep moving. Speaking of big tech and Mark Zuckerberg, Meta puts out an announcement this week. And by the way, not the only one. We've heard some things from Microsoft about some layoffs, but Meta is reducing 5% of its workforce. But over the last few weeks, Pat, you've probably heard DEI programs being shuttered everywhere. Basically, almost every company except maybe Apple has decided every major company tech company has decided to either roll back or completely eliminate this effort. Now, this to me, by the way, is just an indication of when you see a CEO that you think is really on board with your political view spectrum, right or left, don't care. Just realize that CEOs are really great chameleons for returning shareholder value. So if that's the right trend line, they're going to get on board. When you see the pivot, though, don't be surprised, because right now what you're getting is a Trump pivot. You're getting a MAGA pivot, and people may or may not love that. But what's happening right now is we've kind of gone from a very equity, equality, diversity driven sort of structure of hiring to a complete flip to meritocracy. And so basically what Meta announced is 5% of the workforce, which isn't a ton, but it's a meaningful number of a company that size, are going to be let go strictly based on non-performance. Something that hadn't really happened much over the last 4 years because, frankly, it would have been very difficult. Companies would have been chastised, canceled, if the thought process was that the elimination was being done for reasons that were just merit, especially if it affected what are going to consider to be protected groups. This is a really interesting tightrope we're walking right now. As CEOs of companies, Pat, you and I, we constantly face the situation of sort of trying to decide how to make sure we incent performance, how to make sure that we always are building a culture that rewards the highest performance company, doesn't sort of cater to people who are dragging the organization along. And also, you know, Pat, and I'll kind of just say this and maybe kick it your direction, but is like starting with Musk, starting with Hock Tan, forget even the whole trend lines of DEI and non-DEI, just CEOs that have basically come in and said, we're bloated. This company's overstaffed. We don't need this many people. We can run with less. I know there was a lot of sort of media destruction of X, but from what I can tell, X is going to be worth more than Musk paid for it. It's going to end up being more valuable. We've seen with VMware, I think Hock Tan's eliminated more than half the employees now. That one's rolling and running. So anyway, I think this is great. I'm not going to say I think companies need to always be thinking about diversity. They always need to be thinking about hiring the best people, and of course from diverse backgrounds that can bring more insights to companies. But I think meritocracy wins. I think companies perform great when they're built for performance. That's what our great innovation that we just talked about in the last segment comes from. I encourage it. I think that companies, and I think with AI, Pat, this is only going to accelerate. I think with agents and AI, 5% might become 20% for a lot of companies in the next year or two.
This gets me back to a quote that I've been seeing a lot. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. When I came out of college in 1990, the job market was absolute shit. Okay. It was hard to get a job, and you were lucky to have a job. Okay. I also grew up in the Midwest, which is the Rust Belt, which, is the fentanyl capital of the world, where a ton of people lost their jobs. And it's like, and with this amazing increase in GDP per person, we've essentially, even globally, have eliminated most of poverty. Have you ever seen the curve, dude? It's like, it's unbelievable. So I think this cycle, we just haven't had, we're not even in a bust cycle, Dan. It's like, like a little blip cycle, right? We overhired during the pandemic, and this is a rebalancing. And like you so astutely said, AI is kicking in. This work from anywhere thing, companies allowed it and promoted it, got out of hand. They didn't feel like they were able to manage their troops effectively enough. So we're here. Yeah, you're seeing the rubber banding. Everything is secular, folks. One of the reasons I'm a student of history is because these big things don't surprise. Like, this shouldn't surprise anybody. So net, he's making a business decision, and my gosh. Have you ever thought that eliminating layers and eliminating people actually speeds stuff up? Like, I see it every day. I was in the most bloated company you could work for back in 1992, which was AT&T. Freaking bloated and huge, right? This was post breakup. But I see it. And I think I managed more than 1,000 people when I was at AMD at one point. And it was like stuff sped up after we did mass layoffs when we changed the process and when we prioritized. So this is where we're at. the new Zuck is interesting. I can't believe he didn't stop by when he was in Austin for Joe Rogan. I'm gonna need to have a talk with him.
When we get the new format, I mean, I think we are going to be talking to his right hand in AI in the near future.
Yeah, we're going to be talking to Jan LeCun, firebrand, Musk hater, but one of the most powerful people in artificial intelligence right now.
Yeah, I look forward to that one. Everybody out there, keep tuned in for that one. That's going to be dropping on the 6.5 network. Very excited. We got some great conversations next week. I'm jazzed, dude. I don't like leaving on Saturdays. I'm not going to lie. I definitely, it definitely makes for these weird weeks by like Wednesday. You're like, is it ever going to end the week? Like by a Wednesday night, but like this is a once a year pilgrimage. We're going to make it rain. All right, Pat, we got a couple more topics. And of course we've taken forever, 6.5 ever to get here. But there was an acquisition made this week, a very, very smart tactical one. I think one of your analysts, Matt Kimball, did a really nice teardown, breakdown. Maybe the producers, our great producers with their new shirts, can put that in the show notes, by the way. But what happened? What did who acquired who this week, Pat?
Yeah, a little bit of a backdrop. Lenovo is the market share leader in PCs. They're also the market share in lower end storage, and that's under $25,000. But where Lenovo has struggled is in the enterprise data center. For various reasons. They're very competitive, small and medium businesses. They do pretty well with governments, but they just struggled in this area. And it's a combination of product fit and go to market. I know from talking to the leaders at Lenovo, they're doubling down on getting into the enterprise data center in a much bigger way. And one of the product gaps they had was high-end enterprise storage. And they're currently partnering with NetApp on this, having a lot of success in China. I do believe that Lenovo is also the ODM on a lot of NetApp's equipment. It's not a challenge to get in the enterprise for Lenovo in China. Just in even ASEAN countries and the West and even South America. So what Infinidat brings, and it's interesting, they've been around since 2011. They're not this recent startup that came up. Is they have a full range of enterprise storage solution, right? And it's a combination, called the InfiniBox SSA. It's an all-flash option. They have a hard drive option. They even offer cyber resiliency, which is the thing that all storage providers are trying to get into. But it's a rabid market at this point as well. So we'll have to see. I mean, there's a lot of to be determined on this, right? Like what happens with the NetApp Lenovo relationship. I'm hearing back from unnamed sources that it's a non-issue with them. And I don't know if that's corporate speak or not. But this does increase the chance that Lenovo can increase their level of success in the storage market. When it comes to the enterprise, I think it's more of a go-to-market. Say out of the other side of our mouth, it's having the content, it's having the case studies, it's having the sales coverage that I think is going to make the difference. Because, man, competition is tough. You look at Dell, you look at HPE, even Cisco's getting invigorated in the compute market here that comes with storage. It's a really tough market.
Yeah, so good comments. Let's add in the show notes too. Camberly Bates on my team wrote a really nice research note, Pat. This was all about addressing the higher end, addressing the fact that certain parts of their storage portfolio are really relabeled of other people's storage technologies. This gives them that high-end SAN, high-end data protection that has been missing from the portfolio, rounds out the Lenovo ISG business. And I think it's a good home for where Infinidat lays out eventually and ultimately. the only other thing I'll add to that is, this whole storage segment is going to change massively. So there's sort of the ability, it's kind of like x86 and the CPU versus the GPU and the AI accelerator. There's going to be like a near-term era of basically continuing to build out what is sort of really your traditional storage arrays. And then there's this neo storage technology that's being developed for the AI era, and it's going to look very different. So I think Lenovo is sort of addressing and rounding out its core sort of x86 CPU and storage attached and networking business. And I think next they're going to really need to be thinking about how to round out the future of this kind of neo data managed platform that you're seeing with the vast WECAs and even the next generation higher end NetApp platforms and et cetera. So good move, good landing for Infinidat. Be very interesting. This should close. I don't see any issues with this one. So, all right, buddy, let's round this out, Pat. TSMC. So we are heading to Davos, the inauguration, and next week will be the last sort of quiet earnings week before the tech boom for about 4 or 5 weeks after that just absolutely explodes. But every quarter, Pat, TSMC does a couple things to sort of give us a glimpse into the future. First and foremost, they report every month because of where they're traded. They report every month a revenue number. So there's really never a big surprise when TSMC reports. But then they come out with the quarter, and this is where they share some guidance. They tend to share a little bit more about node density, where buyers are buying and on which node, which interestingly enough, I think we've seen now they're 3 and 5, 3, 4, 5 are now close to 70-ish%. It's the vast majority of the business now is on the leading edge. But I mean, realistically, Pat, it was very, very strong in a very very condensed, concentrated part of the business. So once again, high performance, which is inclusive of their AI, was the big winner for the company. It outperformed again. Probably one of the most interesting statements that was made by the TSMC CEO was his 40% estimated CAGR for AI accelerators, providing a really bullish outlook, not just for NVIDIA and the GPUs, but also the whole Broadcom, Marvell, what's going on with Microsoft, Amazon, all the different accelerator manufacturers or the companies that are making custom AI chips. This seems to be a part where he really thinks is going to buoy the long-term growth of TSMC. Ironically, though, like smartphones, Pat, still down, higher single digits. I mean, we have not seen the recovery on devices that we expected. The inventory took longer to sell off. That number's not really growing. So when you see TSMC crushing it, it is a one-to-one. AI is crushing it. The AI business is just good. And now the company's going to be making big CapEx investments to expand capacity. They're trying to address a lot of packaging needs with CoWoS and CoWoS-L and the next generation of CoWoS. And of course, I always say that even though they're not doing the memory part, this is also really a good indicator of the future of HBM. I mean, if the AI business is this strong, the HBM business is going to follow this trend line, Pat. But my take is the chip companies that are heavily connected to the AI chip making, Pat, they're going to have a good quarter.
So the world is not bored with TSMC earnings, but I am. Because I mean, there's no insights. Everything continues, right?
I thought I gave some good insights.
No, you did. I mean, okay. But NVIDIA's moving to CoWoS-L.
I get it. I think it's more it's the leading indicator of what part of the semiconductor industry is doing well. And I think it's when you get the kind of bubble bears out there saying AI is a bubble and CapEx is going to collapse and nobody's buying AI. And then you kind of look at these numbers, Pat, you're kind of like, yeah, but someone's buying it. I mean, someone's buying it. And by the way, I mean, I saw a number. Look, I mean, the number in this Yahoo note said Apple and NVIDIA, they're spending 38 to 42 billion on technology and capacity this year, up way more than expected. So, I mean, the CapEx rolls on, and this also obviously has to fuel the chip equipment makers, right? ASML, Applied, all those companies have to be really, feasting on this as well.
They have, what would be interesting, the only thing that would be interesting to me is they give some indication that Microsoft's pulling back. Amy Hood talked about a leveling out in the second half of, and then the question is, what actually does that mean? Like, to support what level of end user demand? Now that would be interesting to me, or, a spike up. We've had this permafrost on the industrial IoT, including non-EV cars, right? Like that would be interesting. So I don't know, man. It's a big honor to me, but I appreciate you bringing the juice on this.
I'm going to convince you this isn't boring at some point. That is not. But yeah, no,
it's not always boring. It's like this one was boring because it's like, okay, same thing I said last quarter, and the month before, and the month before that. Hey, hyperscaler enterprise data is big. Ooh, no way.
Pat, when I was teasing out our new big survey that we're doing on this AI and CEOs, I said, the big finding is CEOs think they're going to use AI.
Yeah.
So we're breakthrough kind of stuff, right? CEOs are going to use AI. Anyway, great show, buddy. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, as we wind down this exact format, it's just going to get better from here. It's going to get better. We're going to get more unfiltered. Pat's going to get some pecs finally, so he can start benching some real weight. I'm gonna push him here. He's going to get to 300 this year. He's getting a 300 this year.
Maybe a derived 300, which means I got to push 250 for 3. And I just, dude, I don't know. We'll see.
We're up in the creatine to 50 grams a day, and I'm just going to start drinking TRT. Forget shit.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if I get my big bottle of blue anabolic steroids over the through customs.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to ship yours. I generally stop over in Turkey before I go to Switzerland and pick up some from one of those local pharmacies. All right, everybody, I got to go. I got a meeting or something like that. Hit that subscribe button. Join us for all the other episodes of the 6-5 podcast. We appreciate you being part of the community. Look out for our great coverage from WEF each and every minute. Just during this show, we booked 2 more amazing interviews. Pat, very exciting times.
I know.
Yeah. Love you, bestie. I'll see you later.
See you, bro. Take care.
Bye.